Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we're going to be looking at one of the most sus builds in all of Dota. Honestly, I can't tell if it's good, I can't tell if it's bad. However, Slardar currently has a 54% win rate on Dota buff, so this hero is quite good in your average pub. But we're going to be watching it in high MMR. In fact, we're going to be watching one of Dota's favorite players, Topson Dota 2. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into Slardar, and specifically this very weird build. It's off meta as hell, so you'll notice he starts with somewhat standard items, then he goes Bracer, whatever, fine, boots, phase boots, okay, nothing out of the ordinary. However, where things get weird is that he then buys a soul ring, a little sus, but not too crazy, and then he buys Blink Ags. Now this is a build that a lot of people do, not absolutely insane. I think Ags, if you're gonna play Slardar, I think the only way to play the hero is to buy Ags, to be frank. I think the other builds are just not as good compared to Ags and the potential of this build overall, on average. Then he goes BKB, but what gets really weird is then he goes Octarine, Lincoln's Overwhelming Blink. The weirdest part of the build, though, is the skill build, which is stun, and then stun at 3 and 5, and eventually 8. So yes, he has stun maxed out by level 8. This is absurdly uncommon because the ability, it doesn't scale down in cooldown. It's not like it scales incredibly in damage. I mean, it's okay. It goes up to 300. It's a pretty average nuke. The movement speed slow barely goes up, I would argue, for 3 points. Same thing with the attack speed slow. The slow duration goes up by a lot, which is definitely the selling point, but the stun stays the same as well. So it's kind of weird, but it's certainly decent for farming, and we'll kind of talk about it, why maybe this build makes sense, and see how Topson does it. Alright, before we get into the main part of the video, I do want to let you guys know that I'm not only posting videos here on YouTube, I also frequently post videos on the website. If you don't know what I'm talking about, almost every single day I'm posting a new video to the gameleap website. We're going to teach you guys in depth about how to get to the next level. So if you want to become absolutely broken, click the link down below and sign up. Alright, so one of the upsides of Slardar is he's a decent laner. I don't want to say he's an incredible laner, even though I think some people believe that. I think he definitely has some bad matchups. Certain ranged heroes can just kind of kite him out and hit him a lot, but his 6 armor, 300 movement speed, and decent base damage is definitely nice. The hero is very good at contesting CS due to the fact that, you know, you just have a built-in stun. It's easy to secure the range creep. It's easy to maybe even go for a deny by basically stunning the enemy and then securing the creep. Now, this is definitely a lane where he's got very favorable matchups. I would say Sven is reasonably bad against Slardar in lane. It's not that Sven can't do anything, he has Warcry, but it's very easy to build up bash charges, and you don't get harassed very hard by Sven. So you can pretty consistently just walk up and bash him and be very, very annoying. Alright, and now here's where things get very weird, but he actually does start to win the lane. There's a couple of things I'd like to say about the build though. First things first, when you max stun like this, you have to be very aware that the ability is physical damage. As a result, if he was to stun Sven when Sven is currently using Warcry, it will do very limited damage compared to otherwise, right? When Sven doesn't have it active. And so it's pretty important that he just stuns the guy when Warcry isn't active. For instance, here you'll notice the Warcry does only 97 damage, which isn't terrible, right? At the end of the day against AA, it's not bad, but compared to being a magic damage nuke, it actually does less damage in this case. So yeah, not exactly insane, but yeah, the movement speed slow going for an extra second is okay. Once again, I'm not going to try to convince you guys that this is the best build I've seen of all time. It's certainly not, but his win rate's 58%, and the hero has a great win rate. Now, I will say I think it's a little bit weird that he just doesn't take sprint at level 4, or at least at level 5. I'll get into why I think it's very important at level 5, and I think his build's just wrong. But yeah, I mean, at level 4, I guess it makes sense, right? The stun doubles in damage, the bash doubles in damage, so I can totally see the value in not skilling sprint. It definitely seems fine, especially if you're rushing boots, you're already pretty fast. Also, when you stun the ground guys, you get an extra bonus 16 damage, well, currently 8. With level 1 Bastion Deep, it's 8. When you hit level 2 Bastion Deep, you get 16 damage, because the stun creates a puddle, which also heals you and gives you armor if you have your Q. Not by a lot, but yeah, whatever. Makes the puddle, gets some damage out, bash onto the AA, they get the kill. The main thing you want to do as Slardar is pick on the low HP supports. That's how you're going to get kills in the lane. Now, I think the reason why he goes phase boots is because of the fact that he just doesn't really want to skill his Q early on. But honestly, I don't know, I feel like he should. To be fair, it's a good game to have some physical resist against like DK, Leech, and Sven. I honestly feel that the armor from the Q is good enough, it gives you 4. And then having the point here just makes more sense in my opinion. I feel like 25% movement speed for 10 seconds is too high. And then also you get that extra 18% bonus movement speed if you're in a river and your ulti creates a river and your W creates a puddle, same thing. And so I don't know, I feel like not having the point at 5 when it will allow you to disengage and like disengage ganks, which are very common at this point in the game and going forward, it just makes sense. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this build. I think he ends up skilling it at 7, which is kind of weird because at that point, I feel like why wouldn't you just commit to the stun to some extent? But I don't know. I think you should skill it at 5 due to the fact that the W only increases by 50% damage now. Now, to be fair, it is an extra 75 damage. You can see it that way as well. But I just find the scaling to be a bit weird. Because, for instance, a go like this, you're ganking the mid lane, you're going to run through a river, you want to close the gap, and he just doesn't have his Q skill. Maybe if he can get here a little bit faster, he can chase down the AA more conveniently. I think they even don't kill the DK, and perhaps, if he has Q there, he finishes that kill, you know what I mean? I think the build is wrong, because, in this case, Mag ends up getting the job done, but it can lose you kills like that. I don't think having the W damage is worth it. Now, from there, the main thing you should do is just farm your lane, guys. Like, don't complicate the game and roam too early. Like, I didn't mind his TP mid because of his 3 heroes that were low HP diving the towers, so it was likely he'd get a return kill. So that one kind of made sense. It was good decision making, outside of the fact that he had no Q. I'll move on. But yeah, I like that he takes the tower here, just kind of gets his gold up. You want to hit an early blink timing on this hero because that will allow you to fight. I think a lot of people try to force fights previous to blink, and it's just hard. I think if they're diving the tower, it's not too hard. But other than that, it's very difficult to get into fights if you're like running up the enemy's high ground. So primarily try to farm like this rotation here. It seems a bit forced to me. He ends up getting in on the Grimstroke and it gets stunned up a little bit. Fortunately, due to the fact that he has Q now and a Faded Brooch and a Windlace, which I kind of like. I like the movement speed stack on this hero. He's able to get the job done. And at the end of the day, this is what Topson does best. The guy's incredibly good at creating chaos, and so Slardar definitely makes a lot of sense for him. He ends up even living here because the W is only a 7-second cooldown, and in this case, it actually looks really powerful, him maxing it out. Not only does it do a good amount of damage here, even though they are Warcried, what's really notable is that the slow does last really, really long, right? It is a 35% movement speed slow on a 7-second cooldown for 6 seconds. Like, that's extremely significant. It allows him to disengage better than basically any other skill build. So the W is kind of better for disengaging in cases like this, and yeah, they get the job done. And as the fight extends on, he actually does a great job of kiting around. This is kind of just Slardar gameplay, nothing too crazy here, but drops a stun, blink dagger on courier, drops an ulti. You want to be clicking your ulti as much as you can, really, as he gets silenced up by the Grim. Great job kiting out with the Q, understanding this is not his time to go, gets into the river, which gives him some movement speed, stuns the Legion, who doesn't have duel, so I don't know why she's chasing, but stuns up the Legion, kites it out. I think he assumes she has duel. She's playing like she has duel, so maybe she's actually the GOAT for baiting that out. But yeah, kites out the fight again. Q comes back up, stuns up the Legion, and they get the job done. Now, honestly here, this is where I'd typically suggest kind of farming up the bot lane, but his entire team comes mid here, like clearly looking to get aggressive, and he does manage to find a really clean angle on the AA here. I thought this was impressive when I was watching the replay because, I don't know, I probably would have just went back to farming, but he ends up finding the AA on a trap, so I guess partially just nice trap from TA. Otherwise, I don't know, I feel like he wouldn't have found that angle, but it was cool. Now from there, a couple of other things to note is that he skips his 10 talent and then goes back and forth between the Q and the E. I honestly think you should just max Q. I think having this ability maxed out is a little bit too good. It gives you regen, like a lot of regen when you stun the ground. It's quite nice, especially when you're farming, right? Because you're going to click W on camps because you have a soul ring, so you can afford it for mana. And it's going to heal you, and just lowering the cooldown allows you to kite in and out in fights. So honestly, yes, I do understand why you would max Bash of the Deep. It gives you damage. I can definitely see an argument for saying Bash of the Deep is better, but I don't know. I feel like if you're going to fight, then you should be skilling the Q. If you're going to farm more, then maybe I can see Bash of the Deep just for the water bonus damage, and because of the fact that Bash of the Deep does amp damage on creeps, like it does bonus damage to creeps. Now in this upcoming fight here, I actually thought he was going to be more Chad. Like, I think once they missed AA Blast, it's like incredibly hard for them to kill him, because what the Ags does is it gives you 30 HP regen, which is like an insane number, 15 armor, which is also insane, and then 40% status resist, which is also insane. So, and the puddle lasts forever. It lasts 25 seconds in a 600 radius. It's huge and lasts forever, as I was saying. So yeah, he goes in here and he gets stunned, like cold feeded. And honestly, I thought he was just going to run in because you have like 34 armor 40 regen, 40% status resist, like, yes, maybe he wanted to just break the cold feed, but I don't know. I feel like the point of this ag is just to run forward. Once again, I totally see he was just trying to break the cold feed as he gets gone on here. The only downside to this build is like you don't have resistances until you do stun, and so things like silences are very potent against you, assuming you don't have the puddle down. So you do have to be careful because this was a great chain stun from the enemy. He would have been completely fine if he had a puddle down, like it wouldn't have been even close. Now from there, my favorite part of the build, like really why I like what he does, is the fact that he goes shard. I think a lot of people don't buy shard, and I think it's a shame. First of all, it increases the radius on stun, which is kind of good, especially when you're maxing it. To be fair, you're going to have it maxed at this point, basically no matter what. But what I really like is that it applies your ulti in an AoE, and this is good because it helps you farm. When you stun the camps, it helps you farm them faster. On top of that, in team fights, you don't want to have to blink stun ulti. You want to blink stun auto attack. But if you want your ulti, you usually have to do the cast animation and apply it, right? It's just strictly inconvenient. It limits your damage. So the W actually amps your damage, not only of your teammates because you're applying corrosive haste to everyone you stun, but also just to the person you're trying to kill initially because you don't have to do the ulti animation. Also, you just farm obscenely fast. But even in this kill on AA, right, as he goes on him here, can instantly hit, right? Doesn't have to do the Hoya hit animation. You can just start hitting them, and that will help you finish kills. Like there, maybe AA gets away, who knows? And the big thing that really sold me on this build was I played against a Slardar in a pub who also did something similar. And like I tried to man up to him, and it's very similar to this clip here where Sven starts hitting him, and he's like, "Oh my God, strength Sven with Warcry." Like, you know, this is probably a decent trade. Now, to be fair, Weaver's bugging him, Weaver's hitting him too. So like, let's give the Sven a little bit of slack here. But I mean, the Sven, watch when the Sven hits him. It's like 0 damage, right? Like literally 0. And Topson's also tanking the tower. Like that was a 600 crit, and it tickled the guy. Right, and that's how it goes. To be fair, he also has Gossamer's cape, so he's like really not going to die to Sven. Now from this point on, Topson farms like an obscene amount. Like this guy hits so many neutrals. Also, you can take Tormentor solo, which is kind of cool because of the fact that armor reduction destroys Tormentors, and the Tormentor reflects the type of damage that you're dealing to it, and you have a bajillion armor and only do physical damage. So the Tormentor really does not touch Slardar. And yeah, from there he buys Octarine and has a Quickening Charm tier 3 neutral item. So the stun, the W stun cooldown is now 4.7. The sprint is basically permanent uptime with a 1.5 second downtime. And the ulti is a 3.4 second cooldown, which, you know, you're not using, I guess you are using it a decent amount because you want to apply it occasionally to people, considering the W only lasts for 5 seconds with the shard. In terms of the talents, the Slithering Crush damage helps you one-shot creep waves, if I'm not mistaken. I actually am not certain about that. I think the other one helps you kill the waves too, because it amps the minus armor. Later on, I think at level 16, he takes Slithering Crush duration, and at level 15, he takes health. Then at level 20, he took the damage, and at 25, he takes the Slithering Crush cooldown, which we'll get into, because the other talent is like extremely broken, so it's kind of hard to pass on Corrosive Haze Undispellable. But you'll see the Slithering Crush cooldown in play later on. It's pretty nuts. But yeah, from there, the game pace kind of slows down, so he just spends a bajillion years farming. This hero's like the best farmer in the game because, well, the W low cooldown just like insta-kills waves. So yeah, as you can see, so it does insta-kill the wave, right? With the stun damage, it insta-kills creep waves. And that's insane for map control, just for farming, even diving bases. Nah, but look at this. Doosh! Now, unfortunately, his team keeps feeding, so he has to keep farming, which makes his game a little bit more boring, but yeah, you farm up a Linken's, and I think there's a lot of builds you can go. I will say I don't love exactly him completely quadrupling down on defensive items here. I understand why you'd buy Linken's. There's Duel, there's DK Stun, there's Sven Stun. It's definitely mainly for Duel and maybe a little bit for Soulbind. This ability is pretty annoying for Slardar. However, I kind of think like at this point, it's good to mix your build up a little bit. I personally think one of the best items you can buy is a Bloodthorn. It's going to give you mana, which you actually could struggle with when you buy Octarine and have a Quickening Charm. It's going to give you Magic Resist, which the Puddle does not give you, right? It does not inherently give you magic resist, so you can get bursted by magic at this point of the game, unless you're BKB'd. So I personally think the Mage Slayer is incredible for that reason, helps you out with that magic burst, gives you the mana, gives you attack speed, gives you damage, gives you the extra rend. You also get a lower cooldown on the Bloodthorn, so I think Bloodthorn is probably literally the best item you can buy in most games, Nullifier in some other games, because Ghost Scepters are extremely common. So I would have liked to see a Bloodthorn or to like help finish kills, or a Nullifier to help finish kills, because you'll notice actually throughout the remainder of this game, it becomes pretty difficult for him to finish off certain kills. And I think that would truly be solved with one of those items. Like, for instance, AA would be dead here. He dies anyway to another word, but AA would have been dead earlier. It wouldn't have been close, and so on. And honestly, the main advantage of the build is that you can chat up. Now, this team fight ends up being super close. I think his teammates, it's a little bit hard for them to fight. Like, this Weaver getting in is a little difficult. This Pugna, honestly, at this point in the game, it's very hard for him to have impact. So I think because of the nature of the enemy supports, even though that they're 24k ahead, these later fights actually become a little bit difficult. But yeah, this build, you can go so Chad. Like, look at this. Just blind stuns in. And it does kind of set up for a 3-man RP here, which unfortunately did not translate into anything. And once again, this is why I don't really love his build. I just feel like he can't actually finish anyone, and he doesn't click very hard with these items. So I understand his vision, right? It's like stun, 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 stay alive, and stun. It totally makes, sense. I just feel like it is hard for him to finish off some of the supports that he wants to target. Because you do want to target supports with this build. You don't really want to stick on cores. You can bash them and be annoying, but mainly you want to just kind of be aids with the initiation and then bait spells and then kill the backline. And it makes sense why he's going Overwhelming Blink here, just more disruption, canceling Blink Daggers, more strength, more tankiness. I love the Overwhelming Blink here, it makes so much sense. And alright, that's going to be about all for today's video. However, something I do have to show you is this level 25 talent in play. It's ridiculous when your stun is a 2.3 second cooldown. If it was a longer stun duration, this would be completely broken. Like, this would be absolutely broken. Imagine the stun was like a 2-second stun at this point. Like, there's some talent for it or something. My god. But okay, yeah, in this team fight here, I mean, they were kind of winning the team fight already without him, but you notice as he blinks in, stun comes up, they kill off the Sven. Then as he walks over here, stuns back up, stuns up again, and you literally, and he can stun again. Like, you just stun, stun, stun. It's actually so disruptive at this point in the game. It's obscenely good for farming. So if the game drags on, you can obviously buy a Moon Shard, you can upgrade your ag, right? Blessing the Ags, and then buy AC Bloodthorn Nullifiers I was talking about. So there's a lot of room for regression. I think one of the main selling points for me about this build is no matter how much your team griefs or how much you can end the game, even though it's good at ending the game with a puddle because you can siege, even if your team can't end the game, you can keep scaling like a beast. And so I really like this build. I think it has so much potential, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.